Guilty! She's guilty! The judge's gavel slammed, echoing like a death sentence. Cameras flashed. The crowd roared for her downfall. A billionaire single mother, dragged through the mud, condemned without mercy. In the corner sat a homeless man, ignored, dismissed, invisible to everyone. They didn't know he carried the one truth that could shatter it all. In just minutes, his voice would cut through the courtroom and change everything. Tell us in comments, what would you do if no one believed you? Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. Her name was Cassandra Hale. To the outside world, she was untouchable, one of the most powerful women in the city. A self-made billionaire, a single mother raising her young daughter while running an empire that employed thousands. Her days were filled with boardrooms, headlines, and pressure that never seemed to let up. But despite the glamorous image, she carried the quiet exhaustion of someone who had to fight twice as hard just to be taken seriously. Cassandra was a black woman in a world that still preferred its power wrapped in white. Every win she earned, every dollar she made was met with whispers, scrutiny, and doubt. Behind closed doors, people called her lucky, never admitting the truth that she was simply better at what she did. Still, the burden weighed heavy, and though she rarely showed it, her smile hid a constant battle. One evening, as she tucked her daughter into bed, the knock came. Police. No explanation. No courtesy. Just cold, accusing eyes and an arrest warrant. They said she'd committed fraud, stolen from her own company, and betrayed the very people she built up. Neighbors watched from their porches as she was handcuffed, their murmurs carrying more judgment than any courtroom could. She didn't fight back. She knew the world was already stacked against her. By morning, headlines painted her as greedy, corrupt, and guilty before the trial even began. The empire she built trembled. Investors pulled away. Friends went silent. And in the middle of it all was her daughter, watching her mother's name be dragged through the dirt. But what no one saw, what no one cared to see, was the man sitting outside the courthouse steps. Dirty coat, torn shoes, eyes tired from nights on concrete sidewalks. He had nothing, no power, no voice. Yet, hidden in his memory was the one detail that could unravel the entire case. If you were in Cassandra's place, branded guilty before speaking a word, what would you do? The courtroom was a theater, and Cassandra was cast as the villain. Reporters lined the steps, their cameras flashing like weapons. Inside, the air was heavy with judgment, every seat filled with strangers eager to see her fall. The prosecution painted her as a thief, a liar who had exploited her own success. They pointed to documents, bank transfers, and signatures they swore belonged to her. And though Cassandra's lawyers argued, their words fell like whispers against a storm. Every detail of her life was twisted. Vacations with her daughter became evidence of reckless spending. Donations to charity were reframed as cover-ups. Even her late nights in the office were spun as scheming. The jury shifted uncomfortably, but the momentum was clear. She wasn't just fighting charges. She was fighting an entire system that had decided what a black woman at the top must be. Dangerous, greedy, guilty. Outside, the homeless man sat on the courthouse steps, ignored like the trash scattered at his feet. His name was Daniel, though no one had bothered to ask. To them, he was just another face of failure. But Daniel watched, his mind replaying the night he saw men in expensive suits meeting behind the very company Cassandra built. He remembered overhearing whispered plans, the way they bragged about forging documents, framing Cassandra so they could seize control. He had wanted to speak, but who would listen to him? A man with no address, no job, no credibility. His voice was as invisible as he was. Inside the trial, Cassandra's resolve began to break. Her daughter sat in the back, small hands clutching a teddy bear, eyes wide with confusion. The prosecution hammered down piece by piece, dismantling her reputation. And with every accusation, the audience grew colder, their eyes sharper. Cassandra sat tall, but inside she felt the weight of centuries pressing down on her shoulders. Days stretched, each one darker than the last. Daniel drifted between the courthouse and the streets, torn between fear and conscience. He knew the truth. He knew Cassandra was innocent. But the thought of walking into that room, standing before the powerful, was terrifying. He had spent years surviving by being unseen. To step forward now could mean ridicule, rejection, or worse. Yet with every gavel strike, with every headline declaring Cassandra guilty, something inside Daniel burned hotter. He thought of the men who smirked in their suits, knowing they would walk away richer, while an innocent woman was destroyed. He thought of Cassandra's little girl, who might grow up believing her mother was a criminal. The trial was reaching its peak, and Cassandra's lawyers looked out of moves. It was only a matter of time before the final verdict sealed her fate. Daniel stood outside in the cold, fists clenched, heart racing. For the first time in years, he felt his silence was heavier than his hunger. And as the judge prepared to announce the decision, Daniel made a choice that would change everything. The judge's gavel rose, ready to slam down the final blow. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, reporters leaning forward, pens poised. Cassandra sat frozen, her hands trembling beneath the table, her daughter's tear-stained face etched into her mind. And then, it happened. A voice cut through the silence. Rough, cracked, and desperate. "Don't kill her! She's innocent!" Every head snapped toward the back of the room. Daniel stood in the doorway, his ragged coat hanging loose, his shoes barely holding together. Guards moved to push him out, but his words spilled faster, louder, unstoppable. He told them what he had seen: the secret meeting, the forged papers, the plot to destroy Cassandra and steal her empire. His story tumbled out in vivid detail, too precise to be ignored. The prosecution scoffed, mocking him as a drunk, a liar, a nobody. But Daniel didn't back down. His voice cracked with raw truth, his eyes burning with conviction. He described names, dates, locations, things no one else could have known. The courtroom shifted uneasily. Jurors glanced at each other. Reporters scribbled furiously. And for the first time, Cassandra's eyes lit with a flicker of hope. The judge ordered silence, but the damage was done. Doubt rippled through the room, tearing apart the narrative the prosecution had built. Cassandra's lawyer seized the moment, demanding a pause, demanding Daniel's testimony be taken seriously. The atmosphere was electric, a collision of disbelief and outrage. The gavel slammed again, but it no longer sounded like the end. It sounded like the beginning of something unraveling. Viewers, if you were sitting in that courtroom, would you believe the homeless man's words or dismiss him like the rest of the world always had? Because in that moment, Daniel held Cassandra's life in his trembling hands. The courtroom that once roared with certainty now sat in uneasy silence. The judge, after tense deliberation, ordered an investigation into Daniel's claims. Documents were pulled, evidence re-examined, and within days the truth surfaced. Cassandra had been framed. The powerful men in suits, the ones who thought they were untouchable, were exposed for their lies and greed. Cassandra was freed. Her daughter ran into her arms, clinging as if she'd never let go. Cameras that once vilified her now begged for her side of the story, but Cassandra's eyes didn't search for revenge. They searched for Daniel, the man no one cared to see until he saved her life. She found him outside, the same torn coat, the same tired eyes, but now met with gratitude instead of dismissal. The irony was heavy. A woman with everything had been saved by a man with nothing. And in that collision of two worlds, a truth stood clear. Worth is not measured by wealth or status or power. Sometimes the voices we silence are the ones holding the keys to justice. Cassandra rebuilt her life, but differently. She dedicated resources to helping the homeless, ensuring men like Daniel would never be invisible again. The trial became more than her story. It became a reminder of how quickly society judges, how easily truth is buried, and how dangerous it is when we decide whose voices matter. How many Daniels walk past us every day unseen? How many Cassandras are branded guilty before they're heard? And how many times will it take before we finally listen? Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.